How's it going, everybody? It is episode 93 here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes back with you. Got our guy Jonathan on the controls producing this episode. As always, we record this Wednesday, June 7th, just after 7 a.m. Hawaii time. Nice sunny day outside and ready to get this thing going. As usual, release this Thursday, tomorrow, June 8th at our usual release time. Shout out to Uncle Ron, who always is like ready to go when it debuts on YouTube/Facebook, and you can like watch it sort of in real time. So shout out Uncle Ron, who's always tuning in every Thursday. Quick opening drive here. Also wanted to say mahalos to Jonah Kahavai Welch for joining us last week. That was a fun conversation, kind of interesting feedback, just based on kind of his, I think it was kind of interesting for folks to listen to him and his perspective as a guy who's been around for a while, to kind of put it that way, and has seen a lot of things at the program, experienced a lot of things, and brings a lot of that maturity, I think, to the locker room. So I know that was a fun one for us last week as well, Hunter.
Totally. Jonah is one of the last remaining Rolo guys still on the team. I think he and so many others have benefited from COVID and the NCAA going, you get another year and you get another year. And hey, if you can, stay there as long as possible. But on a serious note, Jonah's taking up the reins as one of the leaders on the team. You can tell he probably takes that with a great sense of pride in the way that he was speaking about work ethic and dedication, and just standards, and certain guys on the team always being the first ones in the locker room, in the weight room. To me, it all sounded like signs of a good locker room environment, which usually, not always, but usually means wins on the schedule. So to me, as a former player and a fan, that's what you want to see.
It doesn't hurt, right? Having a good locker room environment, especially for a group that's still, I think, coming together, obviously, with the coaching staff that is fresh. I know they got 1 year under their belt, but as they try to build the foundation that's still being laid, I think it's going to be it's going to help them big time to have a solid locker room, a solid leadership base that can kind of help bring that along, right? So that's going to be something we'll enjoy following with guys like Jonah and some of the others as well, some dudes that we've talked to here on the podcast over the course of the off season as well. An off season that continues to kind of roll along into June. We're basically like 2.5 months, right, or so away from opening kick, August 26th, over in Nashville against Vanderbilt. And that kind of leads us into our game time here. And before we do so, we want to remind you that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, they are committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branch locations statewide and convenient digital banking services. As a leader in providing support for the islands, HawaiiUSA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing successes with members, local businesses, and the greater community. Visit HawaiiUSAFCU.com. Big thanks to them. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile as well for sponsoring episode 93 here on Hawaii Football Now. All right, game time. National TV schedule is out. Hawaii having 4 of their 13 games picked up by national networks. A few of those we had kind of known because of the conference networks, if you will, road games at Vanderbilt and Oregon. So we'll run through that here and talk a little bit about what that could mean, what kind of opportunity that presents. Basically, a third of the schedule will be on national television, including the August 26th opener at Vanderbilt, a return game after last year's opener, if you remember, the first game of the Timmy Chang era, excuse me, at Chang Field. That'll be on the SEC network. The very next week when they come home, Friday, September 1st, the home opener against Stanford will be on CBS Sports Network. That kickoff time will be at 5 p.m., so an hour earlier than the usual home kickoff time. Then a couple weeks later, when they head to Eugene, September 16th at Oregon, that'll be on Pac-12 networks. And then about a month later, October 14th, the lone Mountain West game against San Diego State, that will be on national TV on CBS Sports Network as well. Also a 5 p.m. kickoff. So the two games at home on national TV. Not too much of a drastic change, right? Sometimes those kickoffs are like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, right? It's a little hot. 5 o'clock, so just an hour earlier. Of course, the Friday 5 o'clock kickoff, maybe some traffic around campus there. I believe that's also Labor Day weekend, so it's going to be a little hectic. So yeah, maybe take the day, maybe just make it a 4-day weekend for those folks heading down to the home opener on Friday, September 1st. I don't remember Hawaii playing on a Friday in a while. I think
No,
maybe since definitely not last year. Maybe Todd Graham's last year. There was like one road Friday game in Boise or something like that I remember. But there hadn't been a lot of non-Saturday games for this program in a while. But anyway, your thoughts, Hunter, on the 4 games picked up? I think, obviously the 3 non-conference games, no surprise. And then you figure there was going to be a conference Mountain West game in there too. But we can get into some other of the details. But your early impressions as Hawaii will get 4 opportunities to play in front of an expanded television audience.
Yeah, I think anytime we get to play in the SEC, even if it is against Vandy, is a terrific opportunity for us as a program, for us as a brand, all of University of Hawaii. Super stoked for the guys to get over there, and even guys in-house with ESPN Honolulu, they've admitted they've never traveled east of the Mississippi. So it's kind of cool. I'm sure we're going to be headed out super early for that. I remember Norm Chow days on anything east of the Mississippi was a Tuesday flight out. So just to get out there and get used to the time, that'll be really good. Even just be on SEC Network. I mean, that's as big as some networks these days, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
It is. CBS, that's usually our standard for nationally televised games here at home. So that'll be really good against Stanford. Hey, Stanford is at least not polling well, if I can merge it with politics. Stanford is not predicted to win that many games this year, and I could see that being kind of a trenches game for us. So I'm excited for that one for sure. Yeah, Oregon, that's going to be just a memorial, like a memory builder, I think, for us, with getting to go over there, see the Nike complex, everything that's involved with that. That'll be, I mean, that'll be cool. And the interesting one was San Diego State. I guess CBS Sports Network sees them as a draw with their market, I think, with Southern California. The other interesting one for me that could have been the conference national television bid was the UNLV game at Allegiant. I thought that one, just with the Hawaii fan connection, everything there, just reads as kind of a better story than home against San Diego State. But again, I'm not in charge, but those are just some thoughts that I had for our national TV schedule.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the SEC network, the expanse, the reach, is as big as any of those kind of conference networks. Obviously, it's a huge deal on an abbreviated weekend where there aren't a full slate of games, right, on that week 0 game, I guess, as what it's been termed. The Stanford game is going to be pretty interesting because they've, as you pointed out, they're not projected to win a ton of games. I think their win total is kind of similar to Hawaii's, like 3.5, which again, that's not very good. They weren't very good last year. And David Shaw, no longer the head coach there, right? He resigned, kind of felt that it had run its course. They went ahead and hired Troy Taylor, who kind of an opposite offensive philosophy. Like he came from Sacramento State, former Stanford player. But I'm curious because they might look completely different from what they did under Shaw, where they were trying out like 17 tight ends at a time. But Troy Taylor was like a wide open, kind of modern spread guy. Not that he didn't use tight ends or anything like that, but like they were tempo. They scored like 40 something points a game or whatever it was last season. He took them to the like NCAA quarterfinals. They were like really exciting.
Yeah.
And like the antithesis of Stanford football. And I know David Shaw kind of tried to morph into a little bit more of a spread look late. I think they were kind of grasping at straws, but that'll be kind of intriguing because I believe that's Stanford's first game as well. Obviously, it'll be on national television. It'll be a debut of sorts for them. It'll be a debut of sorts for Hawaii back home. The first time the home fans, I know they'll play at Vanderbilt the week before, but of the not just the Timmy Chang tenure, but the run and shoot, era, 4.0 or whatever version of the run and shoot we're on now. Right, with from June to Rolo as OC to Rolo as head coach, not a Timmy Chang as the guy at the the controls of this offense. So I'm kind of, that was one that I had circled because I think it Stanford will bring a lot of intrigue because it's a brand new day for them. Hawaii coming back home and a chance that I don't know what the early line is, the advanced line on that one is, but it's like, well, if they're going to beat any of these three power conference teams on the schedule, like that's the one, I think. Even though Vandy, they weren't great again last year. But we saw what happened last season when they came down, right? It's like, well, these guys got SEC athletes. That's a little bit of a different story. I think Oregon's going to be really good. It's going to be tough going on the road there. And a chance to play on Pac-12 network, which, that's been well documented in terms of the reach of the Pac-12 networks and whatnot. Obviously in Hawaii, I think we get a little bit more of it. But if you start going east, nobody pays attention because they're just not in as many households. And then, as you point out, San Diego State, right? They have become kind of like Boise. I think the darling of the national networks. It used to be Boise on ESPN. Now, obviously, with CBS and Fox having the Mountain West contract, SDSU is going to play a lot on national television. They're a program that seems destined for a different conference. We'll see how much longer they're a member of the Mountain West. And the other interesting thing here, last year we saw basically just the Vanderbilt game on national television at home, right? The national networks weren't really coming down to broadcast games at Ching. They did a couple during the COVID years when it was a little different, but they also were doing it remotely. They weren't sending the game announcers here. I don't know how they'll set it up for Vanderbilt. For Stanford and San Diego State, how CBS Sports Network will set that up. But it's good to see a couple of games picked up at home because it's not like we're saying anything that isn't known, but the facility at Ching is it's getting bigger, it's getting better, but it's still is kind of jerry-rigged in a sense when it comes to the press box and the vantage points and things like that. And so that was always kind of one of my things, is like I'm a little weary. It's like are the networks going to want to come down and we'll get into the Hawaii Bowl news a little bit later in the pod as well. That'll be continuing on, the date been announced and so the details there. But I was pleased to see that 2 of the 4 games will be at home, and so that's nice to see as well. I presume the rest will be aired by Spectrum. We haven't seen the announcement yet from Spectrum as to all the games, what the package will look like for the pay-per-view, which I know is kind of a bad word to a lot of folks. The only exception in the last couple of years were road games at New Mexico State, where they have their own rights because they were an independent. I don't know what that looks like now that they're joining the Sun Belt. There's a Conference USA. Either way, they're joining a conference. So I don't know what that looks like now, but either way, it's a home game for Hawaii. So that would usually fall under Hawaii's television agreement. So it could be up to 9 games. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be put to work there. Just one of the 8 conference games, so we could see a lot of the conference games on pay-per-view. But some early exposure, and the other aspect of it as well, if they can start quick, right? 3 of their first 4 games are going to be on national television. 3 of their first 4 games, obviously the marquee opponents with Vanderbilt, Stanford, and Oregon, and an Albany game squeezed in there, which you would figure is a pretty winnable game against the FCS opponent. So they will be exposed to the national audience early and often in that first month of the 2023 season, which could be good or bad depending on how you start. But nevertheless, it's always good to get this program exposure, and as they try to build things up, chase recruits, and get that thing going. This is is an opportunity to really do it. And especially, I like that the 2 home games are 5 o'clock kickoffs, which will still, it's not quite the 6 p.m., which makes it midnight on the East Coast or anything like that. But, anybody you talk about with Hawaii football, it's like that late night game, man. And so I like that it's kind of that late window kickoff on national television.
Now, the one caveat to that 5 o'clock is actually if CBS Sports sends a crew down here to work the game, they're going to be in for a rude surprise, really up until the middle of the second quarter, where they can't see the numbers on the jerseys.
Little glare.
The sun and the angle off of Ching is brutal up until about the second quarter mark, whenever it disappears behind the stand sheriff. So that presents itself some unique challenges for broadcasters, where the rest of the folks who are just there watching the game, as long as you're staying cool, it's a beautiful environment still to watch some football. But that will present some challenges, I think, Jordan. I know it did for our guys in the booth for that Vandy game, which I believe was a 5 o'clock start last year as well.
Yeah, it was right around there. It was definitely late afternoon. So yeah, that's the only thing, right? You've got the low stands, which isn't going to block much of the sun, which isn't a bad thing because you get a nice view of the sunset, but also the fact that the press box is on the Malka side facing facing the sunset, whereas at Aloha Stadium it was flipped, right? You had your back to the shoreline and to the sunset. So yeah, that is something. And I don't know if they'll send guys down. I would imagine for some of the, for maybe the Stanford game, that's a pretty high profile one, but that is something to contend with, right? And that's one of the factors of broadcasting a game at Ching later in the day. Maybe we'll get a little overcast sky or something like that. That'll help things out. You never know. But it is one of the logistical challenges that the University of Hawaii and kind of the staff there, right, and the administration has had to contend with, and you give them a lot of credit in trying to make that thing as first class as possible to put on these events, because you want as many of these games on national television as possible. You want the exposure, you want the money that comes with it. All of these things factor in.
Now,
so yeah, that's a good point by you.
Do you in the same kind of vein of talking about first class, you mentioned San Diego State kind of becoming the new Boise, darling of the Mountain West. It's interesting because they're kind of riding the momentum and coattails of basketball, making it to the Final Four.
Oh yeah.
And also just coincidentally being one of the only Southern California decently big market teams to still be in a conference on the West Coast, with USC and UCLA jumping over to the Big Ten. However, I still don't consider them, from a football standpoint, necessarily elite. They're not on the same level as Fresno. And I don't see them at the same level as Boise at this point. I mean, we played them all the way down the stretch and were one bad clock management drive away from tying that game late in the year last year and forcing overtime, and kind of a weak Hawaii football year. So after Coach Long left a couple years ago for San Diego State, they're still very much on the rebuild. At least that's how I'm reading it. But it's just intriguing how timing is working out well for San Diego State right now, even though they're not murdering the Mountain West or competing against UCF or Cincinnati as one of the best group of 5 schools. It's just not the case when it comes to football. So it will be interesting, though, after a national championship for basketball, if they're able to. I haven't been keeping up on their recruiting, but it will be interesting to see if they're able to kind of parlay that into some good transfer portal finds.
Yeah, I haven't checked some of the recruiting news there either. But I think you're absolutely right with San Diego State and what they've been able to capture, right? Because yeah, with Brady Hoke back there, they haven't been quite as powerful as they were, I think, at the end of the Rocky Long time. I think they're definitely trending in the right direction. Right for Hawaii. That game will stick, I think, with Hawaii fans for a long time, where they just basically trotted out like a safety at quarterback, and the dude was tossing it all over the lot in a game that Hawaii very much, as you pointed out, easily could have won up there at Snapdragon, because that's the other huge factor. I think is yes, basketball has been good for a long time. You kind of pair that with football, right? The stat that San Diego State fans love to throw out there is they're like top 5 in the country over the last decade in terms of football plus basketball wins. Like they're amongst the best in the country when it comes to adding up those two results. And obviously, look, a lot of the Power 5 snobs will tell you, like, yeah, look, you play in the Mountain West. It's a little different than say, USC trying to navigate the Pac-12 or some of the other programs out there. I think Ohio State's pretty high up there
It's
in
like
that
bragging
list
about
of.
a score from the white tees.
Yeah, and so it's like, they're trying to make their case, right? Why they should be considered amongst the elite. But hey, look, making a run to the national championship game in basketball helps legitimize a lot of those things. Absolutely. Getting to a New Year's Six bowl game in football and playing well in that New Year's Six bowl game would help to legitimize things. Absolutely. They haven't done that yet, but they've done the basketball side of things. And I think on the basketball court, they've proven like they're very, very good. And they can hang with the big boys. And basketball is a little bit of a different equation. And we've seen programs like, the Gonzagas of the world and whatnot from smaller conferences routinely be able to play with the big boys, if you will, the blue bloods. But the other, I think, huge part of the equation is that stadium and what it's done to kind of legitimize their operations, right? They're not playing in rundown Qualcomm, Jack Murphy, whatever it's been called over the years, in an empty kind of, out in the, it wasn't out in the boonies, but, kind of out of the way stadium that just sat in the middle of a giant parking lot, right? That seemed very old and sterile and kind of, not that exciting. But now that they've got this new, beautiful state-of-the-art stadium, Snapdragon, right, for their home games, but what it's getting in terms of, like, they're playing, right, it's home to the women's professional soccer team there. It's going to be home to the new MLS franchise there. They're getting big international, like, summer soccer tournaments there. They are bringing in all kinds of events. And so it has become a sought after destination. It has become a sought after venue. And look, that's not all directly tied to San Diego State, but it is their home facility, right? And so I think it all kind of factors in. It's on campus right there. And so they're getting a lot of use out of it. They're getting a lot of pretty big time use out of it. Some of those bigger, European soccer clubs are coming over during the summer. They're playing there, right? They're not just going to Vegas and Chicago, but they're going to San Diego. They're playing in Snapdragon. And so all of those things kind of help to legitimize the program. And I think they, bottom line, they mean dollars, and dollars mean you can spend on things, and spending on things means you can usually improve things, bring in better recruits, all of the above. And so, I know we went on a little bit of a tangent here, but it kind of shows, hey, if you invest, sometimes these things pay off. And it's not the most complicated formula. And I get it. It's a little bit easier to get events and things to Southern California than it is to Honolulu. But, when we talk about the stadium deal, when we talk about the basketball program and what it can mean, not just for the basketball program, but maybe for some of the other sports there, it's a big deal.
To me,
so,
to me, San Diego State is the model when it comes to what we could do with our stadium, rather than look at Power 5 schools or Vegas with their whole new stadiums that they're putting in over there, or
yeah,
the Buffalo Bills or putting in a state-of-the-art billion-dollar thing over that's the NFL. We shouldn't be looking at that. We should be looking at what San Diego State is able to accomplish, because we're competing with those guys. We're at the same level. And you might argue that San Diego's market is maybe bigger than Hawaii, but in some aspects, with our draw from Asia and some of those markets, them able to attract other vendors, if you will, like international soccer and national United States soccer over there. It's an intriguing thought where that's been thrown out as a potential thing for us here in Hawaii with New Aloha Stadium. And so to me, I find it encouraging. If they're able to do something like that, why can't we? So I don't consider them leagues beyond us. In some ways, I could even argue, because I'll be a homer till I die, that Hawaii is perhaps more advantageous or strategic for some things like that. But yeah, I see what they've done as kind of forerunners and pioneers for what we could do also.
Yeah, if you invest, there are usually some payouts. And San Diego State, I think, is waiting for that big payday when it comes to potentially a new conference. And so, hey, you gotta spend some money to make some money, right? And that's the big part of the equation. And I get it. For Hawaii, they're in a little bit of a different situation when it comes to the fact that whatever the brand new stadium looks like, and we've talked about it at length, won't be theirs. Right, it will be off campus, but there can be some synergy there, and it can carry over to the football program, and I'm sure that's something that we'll talk about again and again. So yeah, that'll be the 4 nationally televised games. August 26th, the opener, on the road at Vanderbilt on SEC Network. Friday, September 1st, home opener against Stanford on CBS Sports Network. September 16th at Oregon on the Pac-12 networks, and October 14th. At home against San Diego State on CBS Sports Network. Those 2 home games on national TV will kick off at 5 p.m. local time there. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back for more conversation in the second half, a few different topics to touch on when we return. You're listening to episode 93, Hawaii Football Now.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
Second half time here on episode 93. Jordan and Hunter back with you. Episode 93 brought to you by Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union. All right, jumping around a little bit. We talked about TV, so we'll start the second half here. The Hawaii Bowl set for December 23rd. ESPN Networks. A Saturday avoids going up against the NFL on Christmas Eve, which would be the usual December 24th kickoff time for Hawaii. So a little bit of a unfortunate situation there, but this happens, every 6 years or whatever, as it rotates throughout the dates. Hawaii would love to be there. 6 wins might get them there. 7 wins should just about do it. That usual Christmas Eve kick date was always great because there was like nothing else going on, right? The NBA takes center stage on Christmas Day. The NFL, obviously, with their usual schedule. And so like that midweek Christmas Eve date was always really advantageous, and especially for Hawaii, right? This could potentially be a 5th nationally televised game if they can get to bowl eligibility. But Saturday, December 23rd, not the worst case scenario. It'll be its usual kind of mid-afternoon kickoff time. And so we get that affirmation for sure. And it's also good to see the commitment from the Hawaii Bowl, ESPN, whatever their entity is called now, ESPN Advanced Regional Television, that they're committed to that Hawaii Bowl, even if it's at Ching, even if it's not at Aloha Stadium, even if Hawaii wasn't in it last year. And even after it was canceled in 2020 and 2021, when Hawaii was supposed to play Memphis. So good to see that. Not that we thought it was in jeopardy or anything like that. We do get confirmation it's on Saturday, December 23rd. And something for Hawaii to shoot forward to.
Yeah. I'm looking at our schedule right now, Jordan, wondering where the 7 wins are going to be. If that's what the numbers going to be at, provided that there aren't enough teams at that mark, and then at that point, then there's kind of a roll of the dice on 6-win ball clubs getting a chance to jump in there as well. That's what I'm really focused on. But yeah, December 23rd, Saturday, bowl game would be a good way to kind of cap off the season. And I know for the boys and for Coach Timmy and his staff, with the pressure, I don't know, it feeling like as high as it's maybe ever been for University of Hawaii football, that needs to be maybe even more than a shooting, a good thing to shoot for this season. It almost feels like that's a necessity.
Yeah, it would be massive. This football program, more often than not, has played in bowl games over the last, going back to Rolo's first year, right? So 2016, over the last 8 years or so, right? Or 8 seasons, I guess you could say, right? Going to bowl games in a couple of Rolo's years, qualifying in both of the Todd Graham seasons, and obviously now that Timmy is taking over, looking to go to his first bowl game. And so this is, you look, and obviously it's candidly easier to bowl to a bowl game than it's ever been because of the number of games that are out there. And for Hawaii, like 6 wins probably get you there. Would have gotten
they
them there
want us
last
to play
year.
in the Hawaii Bowl. They
yeah,
want
look, that's what the game is there for. Yeah, it's better if Hawaii is in it. I think anybody that runs the game, anybody that works for the television networks, they'll tell you, like, it's better when Hawaii is in the game. It's better for ticket sales. I think it's better for ratings. I think, inherently it's gonna look better on TV, and I think it's gonna draw people in, especially if Hawaii is. I think it's still a recognizable brand. I think there's still a lot of college football fans, a lot of college football degenerates, that still have a great affinity for Hawaii and the football program. I think you just go on Twitter, and you can see that week in and week out. So this will be good. Hopefully Hawaii will be there again. Hopefully it'll be another chance for them to play on national television. Potential for a 14th game, potential for all the extra practice, all the good that comes with it. And for the players, December 23rd, not too bad. You probably make it home by Christmas, if that's the case, right? For the guys that maybe got to travel back home after the season. So it's not a bad setup. Not a bad setup at all.
Me and J.R. Hensley got stranded one time in Salt Lake City trying to get back to Oklahoma. The morning after the Hawaii Bowl, we had a layover in Salt Lake and got snowed in over there, and we were stuck in the Salt Lake City airport for like 9 hours before they cleared the runway, and we were able to fly to Oklahoma City for Christmas dinner. So yeah, know all about that.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a little rough. That's always the when you got to connect like through anywhere kind of north during winter. It's always a little dicey, right? But yeah, we're worth it, right? After the Hawaii Bowl.
Guaranteed. And we got a ring out of it, so that's all that matters.
That's right. That's something these guys can hopefully aspire to there. And it was kind of interesting, kind of circling back to the Jonah Kahabai Welch conversation last week. I mean, he kind of talked about it, right? And how he views the season. It was very very coach-like, right? And kind of breaking things down, seeing what the attainable goals are, wanting to play well at certain times of the season. I just kind of kept thinking about that this week, and just how enlightening I think it was to hear him kind of talk about a couple of different topics. Speaking of the roster, future roster makeup will include Kilinahe Mendiola Jensen, former Punahou standout, Pearl City native who's transferring home from UNLV, defensive back, has experience playing on both sides of the football over the course of his career, spent a couple of seasons up at UNLV. That didn't quite work out, and he becomes the latest example of a guy who, hey, gave it a shot, went to a program on the continent, maybe it didn't work out for whatever reason, and will be coming home, and I think he's pretty excited about it. You've seen some coverage in the local media. KHON did a story on him here recently as well, if you want to check that out. But he's a guy, he's not big. He's really athletic, got good ball skills, good coverage skills, should compete maybe as like a slot defender, like a nickel guy, for a defensive backfield that I think has shown a lot of improvement over the last couple of years. And I think it was a point of emphasis, as we've talked about on this podcast, because they brought in a bunch of guys during the recruiting season to play those positions. And so he will be in a pretty, I think, very competitive environment. But another quality athlete that they're going to have back there to potentially use, in coverage, in special teams, right? We've seen some of those slot defenders, whether it's guys like Peter Manuma, right, who can get after in run support, maybe rush the passer as well. I think Mindiela Jensen is much more of a cover guy, but some versatility in some of those spots isn't a bad thing at all.
Yeah, and for me, the thought comes that we're not only that open door policy, right? Where Timmy's talked about it on the show, and that's kind of their attitude towards guys that happen to go on the mainland or did during COVID, that the door is open for people to come home. And that is kind of our strategy with transfer portal. That's my first thought. The second one is, this is a good DB grab after the departure of Coach Abe, who we've talked at length on this show as being one of our strongest DB recruiters over close to the last decade. And so to me, that's a good sign that guys want to come and play for this coaching staff. Obviously, the draw to come home and play here at Hawaii is something different for local guys than really for anybody else. But that's certainly encouraging at this point in the year. I not sure exactly what depth chart quite looks like yet. We'll get more info for you guys coming into camp here in just about a month's time. But
yeah, it's not far off.
All that we will certainly get you guys whenever the time comes.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see. And yeah, as you point out, with some transition there in the defensive backfield, coaching wise. Yeah, with some transition there in the defensive backfield coaching wise, how these guys all kind of fit into the equation as well. All right, from current roster moves to maybe some future ones, right? It was a big weekend for the University of Hawaii. They had a bunch of recruits on campus, some high profile recruits visiting this past weekend. You had some of the local boys, Kekai Burnett, Tui Muti from Punahou, a couple of guys on the line of scrimmage. Burnett, a really good edge recruit, 3-star guy there. All these guys, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, class of 2024 guys, so rising seniors in high school. Nasiah Caravallo from Kamehameha Schools was also on campus. And then you had Michael Alejado and his Gorman contingent down there, right? Verbal commit quarterback, Michael Alejado. And he has continued, and we've talked about this on the pod, man, he has been like the number one guy on Twitter, on social media, trying to convince everybody and their mom to join him at the University of Hawaii. Bless his soul, man. But he had his teammates. They had a 3-star running back, Micah Ka'apana, who was there on campus this weekend, 3-star athlete, Devon Rice. Those dudes have offers from like all the Power 5. Ka'apana, if you believe in the crystal ball thing, which, on the recruiting websites, is crystal ball to Michigan. So that's the kind of running back he is. 3-star wide receiver Audric Harris is also there. And then they got 4-star tight end Elijah Lofton, who's like one of the best recruits in the country and one of the best tight end recruits in the country. So all those guys were here this weekend. Of course, they had to get the picture with Chris Brown in there. I love it. A lot of these guys were down there. And I bring this up because obviously it's huge, right? These weekends can mean so much. And it's a chance to get these guys on campus, talk to them, sit them down, show them around pretty early, right? some of these guys have maybe made up their mind somewhat. Obviously, Alejado's given a verbal commitment, but this is an early opportunity, right? It's not the middle of the season for them. It's an early chance to sit them down, and I just love, right, because you see some of the social media from the kids, from some of the coaches as well, that they kind of put that out there, right? Obviously, from the coaches, it's a little more strategic, but I just love that the recruiting weekend included like a potluck at the beach. Like, it's the most Hawaii thing ever. There's like a tent. It's got like the H on it, and these guys are down at the beach having a blast, and it's like foil pans with like foil over the top.
Yeah.
Guys are bringing it down. Like there's like a rice cooker, right? There's like spam musubi. Like there's anything you can think of, man, that would be your usual like cookout at the beach down in Ala Moana or wherever you're at. And that's part of like the recruiting experience when you come take a visit to the University of Hawaii. And I love it. I think it's great. And kind of gives you a real feel of what it would be like, man, if you come play here.
Yeah, there's for all the bells and whistles, eventually life settles down, you know. I remember just observing that with guys that we would bring and wine and dine over here and stuff like that. That really only exists for that weekend.
Right.
For them, almost to show them, hey, we can have a good time, and it's really casual and really humble. We're just gonna go down to the beach, and there's a family right next door, and our barbecues are kind of right next to each other, and their frisbee comes over, and you throw it back to them. You know what I mean? Like it's a perfect introduction to what it would really look like and be like over here. I was intrigued by some of UH football social posts and things, because they had Alejado and these guys in the middle of TC Ching turf, repping full-on uniforms, and at first glance I'm like, oh, new uniforms. I didn't know what the situation was, but then I had to dig in a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is like a recruiting day of all recruiting days. This is like it for Hawaii football right here. We've noticed things like this in the past. 5-star QB who's going to Tennessee came over, and we just kind of did the same sort of deal, rolled out the red carpet for him a little bit. And some would ask, what's the point? It's how you play the game. It's how you play the game. They remember a phenomenal weekend over here at Hawaii, dapping it up with all the coaches. I guarantee all of them, the last thought before they go to sleep is, I hope I have shoulders like Chris Brown one day. I know that's what's in the mind of a lot of those young guys, because it's in my mind. So it's how you play the game a little bit. If I can quote Herm Edwards, it's why you play the game. But it's to me, Jordan, this is evidence that our coaching staff knows how to play it. If guys like Micah are excited and continuing to kind of play the affiliate marketing game for us in some aspects, it's all a win. Even if these guys don't necessarily sign with us at the beginning, we still have open door policy at the end of the day, and it makes it easier than ever for these guys to come home. So I don't know. It just this to me gets me excited for what the future of Hawaii football could look like, even in spite of the BS from the stadium. Sorry. It just shows that our coaching staff in this program is willing to fight in the trenches, fight the good fight, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, right? Because it really is a lot of kind of digging in. You can wow them with bells and whistles and fancy lockers and facilities and things like that. Like, does that matter? Absolutely, it matters. Otherwise, these huge programs wouldn't spend a ridiculous amount of money on those things to impress recruits and get caught up in basically an arms race. But at the same time, like, a lot of it is leaving guys or having recruits leave with a feeling, right? So much of it is intangible. So much of it is leaving just a positive impression. Like they've got to feel good about a place. They've got to feel comfortable about a place or being at a certain place, right? And maybe, a bigger program or a higher profile place will win out. Maybe some of the shiny trinkets and whatnot will help in the uniforms. Like that matters, no doubt about it. But for the University of Hawaii, yeah, you trot them out. You show them some of the new Adidas uniforms, right? Especially the one Alejandro was wearing. That was a new one, right? The gray, like battleship color.
Totally.
Now I caught that. That one caught me as well. I was like, oh, that's new, which would be cool. But for Hawaii, like the thing that we can sell the most, I think the thing that sets us apart is going to be the intangible. Like it's going to be the feeling, right? It's going to be the emotional connection that you can create with and for these recruits.
Yeah.
And that's why I think as you point out, right? Like you're gonna live in a lot of ways at the facility, at the locker room. I think it's gonna take up a ton of your time. But you're also gonna spend a lot of time potlucking, barbecuing with your boys, with family you make or bring, down at the beach, whatever it is, like that. Those are the things. Say, hey man, like I know it's kind of nice in some of these other places that are recruiting you, but like what other place can you get everybody together, blast some music, head down to the beach, tent, food, potluck, get in the water, like put in a little work maybe.
Pretty much
like
anytime
that's
you want.
anytime you want, like 12 months a year, 365 days. Like that's what we're selling in a lot of ways, right? To these guys and the local connection, the family connection, the feeling, I think is what it comes back down to. And so I just loved a lot of what they're doing, and I love, and hopefully this pays off, right? It might not. I think it will for some of these guys. Dudes with ties, obviously kids like Michael Kaapana who have ties here. Some of these kids from Gorman who played for Chris Brown. And eventually that direct connection will dissipate because time will go on, years will go on, but there will still be a lot of connections there from a program that routinely pumps out really good talent. And so, yeah, it's that feeling, man. You gotta leave these guys feeling like this is home, feeling like this is a place that is a little different, and feeling like this is a place that they want to come play football, whether right now or maybe, as you point out, with the open door in a couple of years, where it's like, yeah, man, it didn't work out. I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's like, you know what? Remember that time we went to the beach with the coaches and the guys, and it's like, yeah, it was kind of fun. Like maybe that's someplace I want to go finish my college career. And you never know. You never know what could happen there. So that'll be something we'll keep our eye on. This obviously won't be the only recruiting weekend of the period, and so looking forward to some other guys coming down, and some more potlucks at the beach. That'll be I think definitely on the checklist for the recruiting pitch as they go throughout. So it'll be cool stuff. Any last thoughts on that, Hunter, before we kind of transition into wrapping this one up?
Just because we're on a podcast and we're able to say some things that maybe we wouldn't say on the air. I mean this with all I guess tenderness. Take them to Sandy's, okay? Sandy's for the college experience is where they should take them. Not only are you getting the young local vibe over there, the girls don't look too bad over at Sandy's. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So Sandy's is like the potluck, the cookout with the coaches is one thing, and then like your hosts, right? Like the guys on campus or on the roster already. Like that's probably their job, right? Like that's probably that part of the recruiting experience. Like, all right, like, come on, let's go. There are a few more beaches on the island that you might want to check out before we put you back on the plane and send you back home. Like that's I think that's that part of the equation, maybe.
That's right. That's also what I have in mind with recruiting in the trenches. There's creative ways of going about this, and in my mind, ways that have proven successful in the past. So in the interest of going to the beach, let's go to the right ones.
There you go. Yeah, it's strategic. You only got so much time, right? You gotta take advantage and make the most of it there. Good fun stuff. We'll have a lot more to talk about on recruiting as the off season unfolds as well. All right, getting into some of your comments. Again, our guy Leonard dropping us a line, said, by the way, just bought his season tickets the other morning. He's looking forward to the fun season. So shout out to Leonard. Another year of season tickets there. Good stuff. Al from VA dropping it in. Making another pitch because he was very high on Hunter's notes about making things more of a state. We're talking about the UH football coaches being on Maui this past or a couple of weekends ago. But he said 1 UH game per year at War Memorial Stadium. And again, that you'll never hear me complain about that. So yeah, that was a message to new AD Craig Angelos from Alfred VA. So that'll be something cool there if it ever were to come to fruition. So shout out to Al. Also love the Jonah Kahabai Welch interview. He said it should be required viewing for any UH football recruit for a what it takes mentality. Thanks a lot, Al. We'll maybe talk to the coaches, see if we can get some snippets there. I'll play that in the intro video, get these guys hyped to potentially join the University of Hawaii there. So thanks to everybody for dropping us a line. We appreciate it as always. Quick little 2-minute drill. So we'll put the 2-minute timer on for Hunter. Hunter, I figured you're a big golf guy, so we'll just end the podcast here and just get your thoughts on the PGA DP World Tour, which I had to Google, didn't know what that was. Apparently, it's the European Tour.
Yep.
And the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, or whatever the heck that Saudi Arabian thing is called, where they just invest oodles of money in sports all over the place. I woke up to some text yesterday morning. And so in 120 seconds or less, Hunter, what does this all mean?
It means that Saudi has bought a sport. They bought golf. If you haven't been following the drama for really the last 2 years, the PGA has pitted itself against this rival golf league called LIV, and not only is it a golf tour versus golf tour thing, the PGA Tour really made their players to feel, if you go over there, you are anti-America, you are anti the free world, you care only about money, you care very little about where the money comes from, because a lot of those guys over there, hey, they're terrorists. That was the word given from PGA to their guys in hopes to retain them. And a lot of those guys, mainly Tiger Woods, Tiger said no to $900 million, just shy of $1 billion. Rory McIlroy said just shy of $500 million, said no, I'm good, I'm sticking with my crew, you can't buy me. John Rahm, another one, $400 million. Hideki Matsuyama, north of $300 million. All these guys fought the good fight. What happened yesterday was that the PGA, the board up top, they were bought. Whatever the number was given from Saudi to unify all of this, and they're painting the picture that this is good for the game of golf, this is good for the future. No. The guys that are on top of the PGA basically said, hey, yeah, don't take that money. Oh, now they're offering it to us. Hey, you know what? We're going to take that. And so they're bringing all these guys that fought the good fight and said no. They're bringing them over to join with Saudi, whether they like it or not. It is baloney, Jordan. From just a player's perspective, those are the guys making money for the tour anyway. From an ethics standpoint, and just you don't do that, bro. Like you completely double crossed and are going back on your word. It's so hypocritical, and just it's also sad. I woke up to the reality yesterday that everybody can be bought, and it's just an unfortunate reality of the world that I don't agree with. So I hope that was less than 120 seconds. Those were many of my feelings that I'm still kind of having to work out.
Yeah, it was right about at the horn there. So well done by you. Yeah, it was crazy. I woke up yesterday morning with a handful of texts. Yeah, I just can't imagine how those guys on the tour felt. I would be absolutely livid. And we've seen some of the reaction there. So yeah, I bring it up in part because I am curious to see what it means for the tour events in Hawaii, right? Obviously, the Sony Open on Oahu, but also the Century Tournament of Champions on Maui, which is supposed to be the first event of the 2024 season. Like they've gone back to the calendar season. Wow. And that would be the very first event of the new calendar year of the new 2024 season of the new whatever this is.
And it's a designated event.
Yeah. So I don't know how it changes, how it impacts things. I'm very curious to see how this all factors in, especially for us here in Hawaii. All right, man, that'll do it for us. Appreciate you, Hunter. Appreciate the little insight on the massive shakeup in the golf world. Big shout out to our guy Jonathan, putting this one together, cutting it up, splicing it up, making us sound good. And also thanks to Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union for sponsoring episode 93. Jordan Hunter signing off. We'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.